The lobby of the Harrington Financial Tower was designed to intimidate. Marble floors gleamed under artificial light, walls lined with corporate art that no one truly looked at, and a constant echo of expensive shoes clicking across the polished surface. In that world of sharp suits and louder egos, Leo Ramirez barely existed. He was the man with a mop, the silent figure blending into corners, his blue uniform marking him as invisible. On most days, Leo preferred it that way. He'd push his cart past the endless glass offices, headphones tucked into his ears, pretending the music was enough to drown out the whispers. But today was different. Today, he found himself in the center of attention, and not the kind anyone would want. It started with a coffee stain. Not his fault. The intern had dropped it, but Leo was the one scrubbing furiously at the floor when Harrington himself walked by. Nathaniel Harrington, CEO of the empire that bore his name, carried himself like the building existed solely to reflect his power. He stopped, sneered, and pointed at the stain as though Leo had committed a crime against humanity. "Unbelievable," Harrington said loudly, ensuring everyone in the lobby turned to look. "This is why we don't hire people without ambition. Can't even keep the floor clean. Do you have any idea how much this marble costs?" Laughter rippled from the crowd of executives nearby. Phones came out, capturing Leo's humiliation like it was some lunchtime entertainment. His mop dripped water, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles whitened. But Leo didn't answer. He never did. He knew better. You didn't talk back to men like Harrington. You survived them. What no one in that moment could possibly imagine was that Leo Ramirez, the janitor they mocked, carried a past no polished executive could comprehend. Before the uniform, before the mop, there had been another life, one filled with shadows, adrenaline, and the kind of training you never forgot. But that secret wasn't meant to come out. Not here, not now. And then the alarms began to scream. At first, it was just the shrill mechanical wail echoing through the lobby. People groaned, annoyed at the inconvenience, assuming it was a drill. But when the building shook, an unmistakable rumble that made the chandeliers tremble, panic spread like wildfire. Screams pierced the air, glass shattered somewhere above, and just like that, chaos descended on the Harrington Tower. Executives scattered, dropping briefcases and laptops, rushing toward the exits in a frantic wave. Harrington barked orders no one listened to, his voice drowned by terror. The security guards froze, unsure whether to help or run. And in the middle of it all stood Leo. His mop clattered to the ground. His eyes, calm in a way that didn't match the panic around him, locked on the source of the chaos. Masked men storming through the revolving doors, rifles raised, shouting for everyone to get down. The building was under siege. In that instant, the man they mocked, the janitor they dismissed, was the only one who wasn't paralyzed by fear. Because unlike everyone else, Leo Ramirez had been here before. Leo Ramirez had learned long ago that invisibility was both a curse and a shield. As a janitor in one of the most powerful financial towers in New York City, he was seen daily yet never truly noticed. To the executives, he was part of the background, like the furniture, like the marble floors he scrubbed until they reflected their designer shoes. And most of the time, Leo preferred it that way. But invisibility could also sting. It meant people spoke around you as if you weren't there. It meant jokes at your expense when you bent to clean the floor. It meant being treated like a defect in the otherwise perfect machine of corporate power. This morning, that sting came with teeth. The Harrington Financial Tower was at its peak bustle. Elevators chimed, spilling streams of men and women in tailored suits. Baristas carried trays of overpriced lattes from the cafe across the street. Assistants balanced folders and phones, and the endless hum of wealth buzzed against the marble walls. In that cacophony, Leo pushed his cart like always, bucket, mop, rag, spray. He just crouched to wipe up a spill when the air shifted. The crowd seemed to part almost instinctively as Nathaniel Harrington himself strode into the lobby. Nathaniel was the kind of man who carried gravity with him. Late 50s, hair swept silver but full, his three-piece suit cost more than Leo made in a month. He walked as if he owned not just the building, but the city it sat in. Which in some ways he did. Leo kept his eyes down. He'd perfected that survival tactic. Don't draw attention. But fate, it seemed, enjoyed irony. A young intern, jittery with nerves and caffeine, rushed past carrying 2 cappuccinos. One slipped, tumbled, and exploded onto the marble like a crime scene of frothy beige. The intern froze, wide-eyed, horror washing over him. Leo was already moving, mop in hand. He didn't even look up when the CEO's shoes stopped inches from the spill. But then came the voice, sharp, amplified for the crowd. Unbelievable. The single word sliced through the lobby chatter. Silence spread, phones tilted upward, recording instinctively. Nathaniel Harrington gestured to the mess at Leo's feet. Do you people see this? I step into my building, my lobby, and the floor looks like a back alley diner. And why? Because this, he jabbed a finger toward Leo, is what passes for staff these days. Can't even keep the ground clean. A few executives snickered. Someone whispered, "Classic Harrington," and the chuckle became a ripple of laughter. Leo gripped the mop tighter. The intern, pale and sweating, tried to step forward. Sir, it was me, but Harrington cut him off without even looking. Of course you'd cover for each other. That's what the mediocre do. One fails, the other takes the blame. His gaze stayed locked on Leo. You. What's your name again? Oh, right. You're not important enough for me to remember. Heat crawled up Leo's neck. He wanted to answer, wanted to defend himself, but he felt Lily's face flash in his mind, his daughter waiting for him at home, depending on him to keep his job. So he stayed quiet, swallowed the humiliation like he always did. Harrington smirked, satisfied with the silence. He turned to the watching crowd. This is why people stay janitors. No ambition, no pride, just mop water and excuses. The laughter this time was louder, crueler, and all Leo could do was press the mop against the marble until the floor gleamed once more, pretending the sting in his chest was nothing but sweat. Then the alarms shattered the moment. At first it was faint, a mechanical chirp somewhere above. Executives glanced at one another, annoyed, as if the inconvenience was more offensive than the sound itself. But the chirp became a shriek, a building-wide howl that rattled the glass walls. Red lights flared along the ceiling. What the hell? Someone muttered. Before anyone could answer, the floor trembled. It wasn't violent, but enough to ripple water in Leo's bucket. Gasps echoed as chandeliers swayed overhead. And then came the real terror. The revolving doors exploded inward. Shards of glass rained down as men in black masks stormed through, rifles raised. Their shouts cut through the panic. Down! Everyone down now! Screams erupted. The crowd scattered, heels clattering against marble. Phones dropped, briefcases abandoned. Some dove behind couches, others pressed flat to the floor. Leo froze, mop still in hand, heart hammering. His training surged back in a rush of muscle memory. The way his vision narrowed, his body automatically cataloging exits, head count, weapons. He hadn't been this alert in years. The leader of the intruders fired a round into the ceiling. Marble dust rained down. Shut up! Hands where I can see them! The lobby descended into chaos. Executives whimpered. Harrington, red-faced, barked at his guards, who were already face down, unarmed and helpless. The gunmen moved fast, corralling hostages into a cluster near the elevators. They shoved people to their knees, rifles sweeping back and forth. Fear thickened the air, heavy and choking. And still, through all of it, no one looked at Leo. He stood apart, mop abandoned at his feet, just another piece of background scenery. Invisible again. But this time, invisibility wasn't a curse. It was an opportunity. Leo slid backward, inching toward the janitor's closet tucked beside the stairwell. His heart thudded, adrenaline singing in his veins. He hadn't touched a firearm in years, hadn't thrown a punch outside a bar fight since leaving the service. But the instincts were still there, buried, dormant, waiting. He slipped into the closet, shut the door silently. Inside was darkness, the faint smell of bleach and dust. He braced his hands against the shelves, forcing his breath to steady. Think. There were at least 6 men, maybe more. Automatic weapons. Their formation suggested military training, not amateurs. Which meant this wasn't a simple robbery. They wanted something, or someone. Leo's jaw clenched. He could stay hidden, survive. No one would blame him. He had a daughter waiting at home, and the last thing she needed was a father in prison, or a coffin. But then he thought of Lily's voice the night before. Daddy, are you ever scared at work? He'd laughed, kissed her forehead, and said, No, Micha, nothing scary ever happens at Daddy's job. Now, with the muffled cries of hostages seeping through the door, he knew that wasn't true. He opened his eyes. In the shadows of the closet, his gaze fell on the toolbox. His fingers brushed over the cold metal handles of wrenches, screwdrivers, a crowbar. Not weapons, not really, but in the right hands, tools became something else entirely. And Leo Ramirez had always been good with his hands. Meanwhile, out in the lobby, Harrington was on his knees, trembling with rage more than fear. "Do you know who I am?" He spat at the masked leader. "This is my building. You won't get away with this." The man silenced him with a brutal kick to the ribs. Harrington doubled over, wheezing, his authority crumbling in an instant. The leader turned his attention to the crowd. "We're here for the vault. Anyone tries to play hero, they die." His voice was calm, measured, deadly serious. No one moved. No one except Leo, who emerged quietly from the closet, eyes cold, grip firm around the length of steel pipe he'd pried from the maintenance rack. He wasn't invisible anymore. Not to himself, not to the men who were about to learn what kind of mistake they'd made. The steel pipe felt heavy in Leo's grip, but it wasn't the weight of the metal that pressed into his palms. It was the weight of choice. Every step out of that janitor's closet was a decision to risk not only his own life, but the fragile future of his daughter. The lobby was chaos contained. The gunman barked orders, shoving executives into a tighter cluster. Someone whimpered. Someone prayed. Harrington wheezed curses, still clutching his ribs. The leader paced like a wolf, circling sheep, his rifle ready to strike. Leo moved low, keeping to the edges, slipping behind columns and potted plants that suddenly felt like cover in a war zone. His years in the military, the years no one in this building knew existed, were surfacing with a terrifying clarity. He remembered how to breathe, how to still his heartbeat until it matched the rhythm of footsteps. Two gunmen peeled away from the pack, one heading toward the elevators, the other sweeping near the stairwell. Leo tracked the latter, waiting until the man's back was turned. Then, swift as muscle memory, he closed the distance. The pipe struck once, hard, precise, across the back of the skull. The man crumpled before he could even gasp. Leo caught his body, lowering it silently behind the column. He stripped the rifle, checked the magazine. Full. His hands worked fast, like they had 1,000 times before. The janitor was gone. The soldier was back. But the soldier had rules now. He wasn't here for war. He was here to protect. The leader's voice boomed through the lobby. "Vault access. Where's the manager?" He jabbed his rifle toward a trembling woman clutching a clipboard. You've got clearance?" I'm just HR," she stammered. "Then find me someone who isn't useless." Executives scrambled, pointing to one another, desperate to shift the spotlight. Harrington, through gritted teeth, tried to assert authority. "You can't access the vault without me. I'm the only." Another kick silenced him. Blood speckled his perfect tie. Leo's jaw tightened. He knew this pattern. Terrorists never wasted time on theatrics unless they wanted leverage. The vault wasn't just about money. It was about information. Documents, securities, digital backups, things worth far more than cash. He had to act before they forced someone to open it. Upstairs, the stairwell echoed faintly with the scuff of boots. The second gunman, the one who'd gone for the elevators, was circling back. Leo slipped inside the stairwell, hugging the shadows. The man's silhouette appeared, rifle sweeping lazily as if he didn't expect trouble. That arrogance was his mistake. Leo lunged, driving the pipe into the man's gut. The air whooshed out of him, a strangled grunt. Leo followed with a strike to the temple. The gunman staggered, fought back, fists swinging wild. For a moment, Leo felt the burn of combat again, the old instinct, the dance of survival. He ducked, twisted, slammed the man's head into the stair rail. The body went limp, sliding down the steps. Leo crouched, breath steady, listening. No alarm. No one noticed yet. He dragged the body into the shadows and crouched over it, whispering almost like a confession. "Sorry, Hermano. Wrong building, wrong day." Back in the lobby, panic grew. One hostage tried to bolt, an assistant in a pencil skirt, sprinting toward the glass doors. A gunman raised his rifle. Leo fired. The suppressed crack of the stolen rifle echoed once. The gunman collapsed, shot clean through the knee, screaming. Gasps filled the lobby. Heads snapped toward the source, but Leo had already moved, vanishing behind the stairwell wall. The leader roared, "We've got resistance! Find him!" Now the siege was fractured. Some gunmen turned their rifles outward, scanning the shadows. The hostages huddled tighter, fear mixing with a strange new thing: hope. For the first time since the doors had exploded inward, they realized someone was fighting back. Leo's mind ran hot with tactics. He couldn't face them all head on. But he didn't need to. He needed to break their rhythm, make them doubt control, stretch their nerves thin until mistakes cracked them open. He moved like a ghost through maintenance corridors, using the building itself as a weapon. He cut the power to one section of lights, plunging half the lobby into darkness. Shouts erupted. Gunmen cursed, fumbling with flashlights. From the vents above, Leo tossed a cleaning cart he'd wedged into position. It crashed loudly, drawing two men away from their posts. While they investigated the noise, he slipped behind them. One chokehold, one crack of the pipe. Another rifle stripped, another threat erased. Every strike was efficient, brutal in its necessity, but not lethal unless it had to be. Leo didn't kill for pride. He disabled to protect. That distinction mattered, especially for Lily. As the battle raged in whispers and shadows, Harrington raised his bloodied head, confusion knitting his brows. He recognized something in the way the gunmen were falling, one by one. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chaos. It was skill. And then, a chilling realization crossed his face. The man he had mocked, humiliated in front of his empire, was the one dismantling the attackers piece by piece. For Leo, there was no satisfaction in Harrington's dawning awareness. There was no time for vindication, only movement, precision, survival. But deep down, a part of him, the part that had bent under years of mockery, felt a quiet flame, not of revenge, but of revelation. He was invisible, no longer. The Harrington Financial Tower was no longer a fortress of wealth and power. It had become a battlefield, its marble floors smeared with chaos, its glass walls trembling under the weight of fear. And at the center of it all, a janitor turned ghost had been dismantling a team of professional gunmen one by one. But ghosts could not remain unseen forever. The leader snarled orders into a headset, his patience unraveling. Lock down the lobby. Whoever this bastard is, flush him out. He's not a cop, too quiet for that. Whoever he is, he's dead. Two of the remaining gunmen spread toward the stairwell. Another stayed at the hostages, rifle trained on trembling civilians. The leader himself paced, scanning every corner with predator's eyes. Leo crouched in the service hall, heart pounding but steady. He'd taken down 4 already. That left 3, maybe 4 if the leader had backup. His body hummed with adrenaline, but his mind was razor sharp. He knew what came next. The element of surprise was gone. The hunt had shifted. Now, he was the hunted. A sudden scream cut through the air. Leo's stomach twisted. One of the gunmen had yanked a hostage to their feet. It was the HR woman with the clipboard, shaking so violently she nearly collapsed. "Enough games," the leader shouted, pressing his pistol to her head. "Whoever you are, you've got 10 seconds to come out before she dies." The lobby froze. Every hostage stared at the shadows, waiting. Some silently begged for the Phantom Protector to stay hidden. Others prayed he'd appear. Harrington's face twisted with something complicated: fear, anger, and a spark of realization. He muttered under his breath, "He'll come. Whoever he is, he'll come." Leo clenched his jaw in the darkness. His mind flashed with Lily again. He remembered her tiny hand in his, the way she whispered before bed, "Promise me you'll come home, Daddy." If he stayed hidden, the woman would die. If he stepped out, the odds would tilt against him. But Leo Ramirez was never a man who measured life in odds. He measured it in choices, and some choices were not negotiable. He stepped into the light. The lobby gasped as the ghost emerged from behind a column, rifle in hand, face grim. No armor, no uniform, just the blue janitor's shirt, sweat-stained and torn, sleeves rolled to scarred forearms. The leader's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. He hadn't expected this. Not a SWAT officer, not a rival mercenary, just a janitor. "You?" Harrington blurted, disbelief dripping from his voice. "You're the one." Leo cut him off with a sharp glance. His voice, calm but firm, rolled across the lobby. "Let her go. This ends with me, not them." The leader sneered, pressing the gun harder against the hostage's skull. Brave words for a mop boy. But there was something in Leo's stance, feet planted, weapon steady, eyes unflinching, that unsettled him. This wasn't a man bluffing. This was a man who had been here before, in deserts and jungles, where hesitation meant death. The standoff cracked when one of the gunmen lunged. Leo moved faster. A single shot rang out, precise, controlled. The attacker's weapon clattered as he dropped to the floor, clutching his leg. Screams erupted again. The leader shoved the hostage aside, rage twisting his features. "Kill him!" The lobby exploded into chaos. Bullets shredded the marble pillars, sparks flying as rounds ricocheted. Hostages dove flat, covering their heads. Harrington crawled behind an overturned couch, muttering curses and prayers in the same breath. Leo moved like water, rolling behind a column, returning fire in sharp bursts. His training came alive in every motion. Never linger. Never waste ammo. Keep moving. The rifle barked in his hands, each shot intentional. He clipped another gunman in the shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Blood sprayed across the pristine marble. 2 left. The leader roared, flanking with his last man, trying to corner Leo in the lobby's open space. But Leo anticipated the angle. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, yanked the pin, and blasted the white mist across the lobby. Visibility vanished in a choking cloud. Coughs, curses, gunfire into nothing. And from within the haze, Leo struck. He slammed the steel pipe into the last gunman's ribs, sending him sprawling. With the same motion, he disarmed him, rifle skidding across the floor. The mist cleared slowly, leaving only Leo and the leader standing. The leader ripped off his mask, revealing a scarred face twisted in fury. "Who the hell are you?" he spat. Leo leveled his rifle, eyes cold. "Just the janitor." The line echoed through the lobby, sinking into the minds of every executive, every hostage who had laughed or sneered at him hours earlier. Nathaniel Harrington, clutching his ribs, stared in stunned silence. The man he'd mocked, the man he'd called worthless, was the reason he was still alive. But the fight wasn't over. The leader dropped his empty rifle, pulled a combat knife from his belt. Then die a janitor's death. He charged. Leo braced, muscles coiled, every instinct from his past roaring back. The final clash had come. The fire extinguisher mist thinned, leaving behind broken glass, scorched marble, and the silence of fear. Now, there were only 2 men left standing in the grand lobby of Harrington Tower. One was the leader, scarred face glistening with sweat, knife gleaming in the fluorescent light, eyes burning with the fury of a man who would rather die than lose. The other was Leo, sleeves rolled, chest heaving, rifle empty, and yet unbroken. A janitor's uniform clung to him like a disguise too small to contain the soldier inside. They circled each other in the wreckage. The leader snarled first. "You should have stayed invisible, Ghost. You're not fighting for money. You're not fighting for power. You're fighting for them." He jerked his knife toward the cowering hostages. "They don't even know your name." Leo's voice was calm, low, steady. "Don't need them to. Just need them alive." Something flickered across the leader's eyes. Contempt, maybe fear. He lunged. Steel slashed through the air. Leo sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the blade, countering with a brutal strike of his elbow. The crack echoed as bone met jaw. The leader staggered but didn't fall. The fight became primal. Knife arcs, fists slam, bodies crash into overturned furniture. Each strike from the leader was feral, born of desperation. Each counter from Leo was controlled, precise, the echo of a soldier who had survived too many wars. At one point, the knife grazed Leo's forearm, blood streaking down to his hand. He hissed but did not falter. The hostages watched in stunned silence, torn between terror and awe. The janitor fought like no man they had ever seen, disciplined, relentless, unyielding. The leader sneered through bloodied teeth. "I know what you are. Black ops. Discarded. A government ghost. They trained you to kill and then threw you out like trash." Leo's jaw tightened. The truth hit harder than any punch. He didn't answer, but the silence was confirmation enough. The leader grinned viciously. "So you hide here, scrubbing floors, a soldier without a war. Pathetic." Leo's fist crashed into his face, dropping him to one knee. "I've had enough wars." The knife swung upward, a desperate final strike aimed for Leo's throat. But Leo was faster. He caught the leader's wrist mid-swing, twisting with bone-snapping force. The knife clattered to the floor. In the same motion, Leo drove him back against a marble pillar, forearm pressed to his windpipe, rifle strap cutting across his shoulder. The leader clawed, choked, thrashed. Leo's eyes burned, not with rage, but with something colder, resolve. "For people like you," he whispered, voice like gravel, "death is too easy." He slammed the man unconscious against the pillar. The body went limp, collapsing to the floor. The lobby fell into stillness. The last echo of violence faded, replaced by the ragged breaths of terrified civilians. Then, slowly, the weight lifted. Hostages realized they were alive. Tears flowed. Whispers spread, "It's over. He saved us." Leo stood there, bleeding, chest heaving. Not victorious, just alive. Nathaniel Harrington rose shakily from his hiding spot, his eyes wide with disbelief locked onto Leo, the man he'd mocked, the man he'd ordered to mop his marble floors, the man who had saved his empire. For the first time in his life, Harrington was speechless. Leo broke the silence. Call the cops. Tell them it's clear. He started toward the service corridor, leaving behind the ruin and the stairs. He wanted no applause, no reward, just distance. But before he vanished, a child's voice, thin, trembling, called out from the hostages. "Mr. Janitor?" Leo stopped, turned. A boy no older than Lily looked at him with wide, tear-streaked eyes. "Thank you." The words pierced deeper than any knife. Leo gave the smallest nod, then disappeared into the shadows of the tower as quietly as he had come. The flashing red and blue lights of police cars painted Harrington Tower in chaos. Sirens wailed. Reporters crowded the cordon, their microphones trembling with questions. Inside, officers swarmed the wreckage, collecting weapons, escorting shaken hostages, zip-tying unconscious mercenaries. And yet, when they asked, "Who saved you?" no one could give a straight answer. Some said it was a bodyguard. Others swore it was an off-duty cop. One man insisted it was a ghost. Only the little boy, still clutching his mother's hand, whispered the truth. It was the janitor. Nathaniel Harrington stood in his shattered lobby, staring at his ruined empire. For once, his tailored suit looked small on him. He had wealth. He had power. But tonight, neither could save him. A man he'd overlooked, underpaid, even mocked, had carried the weight of survival. For the first time, Harrington felt something unfamiliar crawl through his chest. Humility. Days later, when workers replaced the glass, scrubbed the soot, and reset the marble floor, Harrington gave a quiet order. Double the staff wages. All of them. Especially the janitors. His assistant raised an eyebrow. "But sir, the janitor." Harrington cut him off. "He's gone." And that was true. Leo never came back. His locker was empty, his mop abandoned in the storage room. No forwarding address, no resignation letter, just silence. Weeks passed. Far from the glittering skyline, that in a nameless town where nobody cared about Harrington Towers or corporate empires, Leo lived quietly. A small rented room, a faded jacket. Nights spent fixing radios, watering plants, walking to the corner store. He blended back into the background, just another shadow in the world. But sometimes, in the hum of fluorescent lights, he'd remember the boy's voice. "Thank you, Mr. Janitor." It was enough. Back at Harrington Tower, a story spread. New employees heard it on their first day. Guests asked about it when they passed the marble lobby. They called it the night of the ghost janitor. Some said he was ex-military. Others claimed he was a phantom of the building itself. Nobody really knew. But when the cleaners pushed their mops across the floor at night, security guards would nod and smile, half joking, half believing, "Careful. Don't mess with the janitor." And in the silence, that was how Leo lived on. Not as a hero on TV, not as a soldier in history books, but as a quiet legend. Just the janitor. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this story. If the image of this silent night guardian left an impression on you, give this video a like to fuel our passion for telling more stories like this. Don't forget to share it so your friends can also hear about the legend of the janitor, a hero without spotlight. And most importantly, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because many more thrilling, emotional, and unforgettable stories are waiting for you. Your support is the greatest power that keeps us going.